Welcome to CNN 10, your source for objective explanations of the day's news. I'm Carl Azus at the CNN Center. We have some medical news leading off today's show. In the midst of the second deadliest outbreak of the Ebola virus, there could be a light at the end of the tunnel. First, here's what's been going on. An Ebola outbreak was declared last summer in the Democratic Republic of Congo. That's where the disease was first identified in 1976, and the outbreak that started last year was at least the 10th one since then in the DRC. 1 year later, more than 2,700 people in all have been infected, and more than half of them have died. There's no cure for Ebola. The virus's symptoms usually include fever, body aches, stomach pain, vomiting, and bleeding. And without extensive protective gear, anyone in close contact with someone who's infected is at risk. So what's this silver lining? There are 2 new medical treatments available to Ebola patients, and some doctors say they're highly effective. On average, Ebola kills half the people it infects. But among 500 Ebola patients who received the new drug treatments, the death rate was between 29% and 34%. And the news gets better. For patients who were treated early enough with these drugs, researchers say the death rate drops to between 6 and 11%. So scientists believe the drugs show a lot of promise in moving toward a cure. Over the past 4 decades, the Ebola virus has devastated communities and fueled fear across Central and Western Africa.
Dr. Cameron Mode enters this exhausting battleground, where a transparent barrier isolates a highly contagious Ebola patient from the outside world. The death rate in this outbreak, nearly 70%.
You know, sometimes you forget, even for myself, this is my 3rd Ebola outbreak, the terror that this strikes into people. When people come here, they feel they might die. In fact, they believe there's a good chance they will. But if they're inside there, they'll be able to see the eyes, the emotions, the care of the doctors, and also for the family members coming in, they'll be able to interact with them. They're no longer isolated in the same sense.
They call these new units the Cube. The family can begin to trust us, says Dr. Mode, because they can see with their own eyes that we are caring for their loved ones. Its design, a hard lesson learned from the 2014 West African epidemic, where Ebola killed more than 11,000.
Sometimes all the world knows is fear, but they don't look at the individual people.
We need to treat these patients with empathy, he says. We need to treat them like they're a member of the family. In the nearby creche, Ebola survivors now immune to the disease, like Masima, become family to young babies who wait to see if their infected mothers will live or die.
You have a smile on your face. Why do you have a smile on your face?
My smile is the joy of being alive, she says. I beat Ebola. I'm smiling to the God who gave me life. Ebola is a disease that breeds unparalleled fear. Here, at least, hope remains. David McKenzie, CNN, Beni, Democratic Republic of Congo.
10-second trivia. In economic terms, 2 consecutive quarters of negative economic growth is known as what? Depression, deflation, recession, or regression? When a country's gross domestic product shrinks for 2 quarters in a row, a recession is underway. Just the fear of a recession can cause stock markets to shudder. On Wednesday, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, an index of 30 significant U.S. stocks, dropped 800 points. And as you see on the left side of your screen, that's more than 3% overall from where the Dow started the day. The main reason was because of something called the Treasury bond. On Wednesday morning, the 10-year Treasury bond dropped just below the 2-year Treasury bond. Okay, why is that significant? Because every time that's happened in recent decades, a recession has followed. In fact, the last time the 10- and 2-year Treasury bonds flipped was in 2007 at the beginning of the Great Recession. But this doesn't necessarily mean we're at the dawn of a new one. The U.S. economy is strong. Unemployment is historically low. Consumer spending is high. These are all good indicators for the economy. So a leading U.S. investment analyst expects the economy to slow down but not go into a recession despite the Treasury bond flip. Still, the change led investors to sell stock in companies and move it into bonds, a less risky place to keep money in uncertain times, and that's what caused the stock market to take such a dive. Positive Athlete. It's an ongoing series that features high school students helping others, whether they're on or off the field, and Waswa Robbins is a great example. As a boy in the African nation of Uganda, he lost both his parents and was eventually adopted by an American woman. Since moving to the U.S. 5 years ago, he's worked to connect students from 2 continents.
My name is Waswa Robbins, and I'm from Uganda. In Uganda, I pretty much play soccer basically every single day. I went to school, and then after school, I would just play, pick up soccer with some friends. Since I was little, I loved the game and still do. So now I play for the Atlanta United U17 Academy team. That is part of the Development Academy, and that's the highest soccer level for youth in the United States.
Waswa also really values school. He lived in a country until he was 11 where kids were begging to get to go to school. And so he would not put something above that opportunity to receive an education.
Waswa was involved with the Africa Interactive Club, which he started this year.
I started this club hoping that I could unite my classmates and students here at Lovett with kids I grew up with in Uganda.
And Waswa was able to garner a lot of support from some other students on campus here, and they've been able to do some initiatives, trading some art with folks over at his old school in Africa, and building relationships from his friends back in Uganda and his friends here at Lovett.
He said that the reason was because he wanted his friends, his peers at the Lovett School to experience what he has, which is the joy of interacting with those children in Uganda and in other countries in Africa. Also, he knows that the students here have a lot of resources, and he knows there's a lot of joy in giving, not just giving things away, but giving your time, giving your heart, giving your passion. He understands that by having interaction, it creates relationships that lead to a lot of growth on both ends of the spectrum, both sides of the world.
And since I've moved to the U.S., I've really seen that so many kids have, are closed-minded and don't really want to learn about other people and their cultures, and I've just kind of wanted to help these kids open themselves up to the world and to Africa, and encourage them to maybe help and just interact with kids their age and have fun.
Unlike yours truly, not everyone in news wants to be on camera. Take, for instance, this burrowing owl. It's easy to see she ain't happy about reality TV. A hidden camera, which obviously wasn't hidden enough, was placed nearby the burrow to observe the animals in action. And even though these creatures only grow to weigh about 1/3 of a pound, they're still strong enough to take out technology. We know what the camera operator said. Looks like Owl will have to call tech support. We'll have to borrow their expertise to fix an owl function that occurred when a bird seed the camera and pushed its beak to a less frightening location. I'm Carl Azus for CNN 10, and Owl hope to see you tomorrow.